Hello, everybody. We are live now. Let me get everything set up and let's continue on our exploration of the Great House. For those who are joining me for the first time, my name is Jan Dvorak, aka Storyteller. I'm the founder and CEO of the Universe. Normally, here I stream about technical stuff. You could say technical and specifically related to Meteor.js framework, but occasionally I do also go into other topics. Today, going more into like a philosophy or idea part. This will be part two of The Great House, which is my idea about family structure, and all of that. I'll do a little bit of a review here at the beginning, and then we'll go where we left off once I find my notes, which, as you can see, I have all over the place here. The idea come, I need to write it somewhere down, so that's where that comes from. All right, this is another ideas here. And before I get going, it might be a good idea to actually write more about this on social media. So, in the meantime, how is everybody doing today? How are you guys? What's new in your life? Feel free to say hi in the chat. If you are my sponsor, you should have in your email from last month or beginning of this month a link to join me here. So feel free to join me here as well. So, Great House, part 2. Let's see, let's put it on stream. So as I said, it's something a bit different from my usual, you could say, false and from my usual tech. Well, let's just call it Meteor.js content. So let's post this on Twitter for now and see where we go from there. So let's close things up. First things first, if you want to, you can join me in reading the content. I am putting it up here in the comments. So let's share the screen here. So this is how we have it on Letter Universe, where the text is hosted. Last time we read the introduction and the first 6 parts. I've also did some updates afterwards based on the notes and things that we got our idea about. So, what is the Great House about for those joining us for the first time? The Great House is let's say, a family philosophy about how one should structure kind of family as a multi-generational project. It's for people who want kind of more out of family than, say, the traditional maybe structure, or well, not even traditional structure, but then the tradition or like what is currently common in society allows for. It's based on let's say historical and traditional family structure in Central Europe and in Korea and Japan. Surprisingly, those two regions have same family structure. So that's where the simulator is. Probably the easiest way how to think about it is to think about a family around a family business, or like a noble family from the Middle Ages. And you know that general thinking about multi-generational approach to problems, issues, planning, all that stuff. It's not for everybody. Full disclaimer, definitely not for everybody. But if you want to really have something that lasts multiple generation, I think this is the approach to go. And I take inspiration both from historical families that existed or still exist, and also draw inspiration from fiction as well. So, without further ado, just last time we kind of covered the main things about, I would say, the branches of family, how to structure family, the importance of mate selection, which I would say could be a very uh, interesting topic in itself. How you choose your partner for family, and the main idea is that kind of needs to have everybody educated properly, so that they can then pick a partner well that's going to fit in the family, understands it doing, because you don't want somebody who is going to come in and just start breaking things apart, and or somebody who just cannot handle what the family is about as well, because it's a big thing to realize that when you're marrying or dealing with somebody, it's not just between you and your partner, but you have to also take into account their family and your family, and how that is going to work well together or not. I had a friend who broke up with his girlfriend of many years after his well, sometime after his sister got married, and he got to know her family uh, much better, the girlfriend's family. And he realized that despite that he loved his girlfriend, with the family, with her family, he wouldn't be able to uh, kind of be able to do what he wanted to do in the relationship, and have the feelings, and uh, build the relationship the way he wanted. So that's that plays a big part. And it's important to note here that it's we don't believe here in this for me nonsense. So love overcomes everything. There is, yes, an option to, or there is an option, like for example, if your son brings somebody that you don't think uh, should be welcomed into family or included, then it's then up to them to kind of that uh, for them to prove that they can be part of the family. So it's not like that you can just reject them and throw them away, although there might be some cases, but that's usually quite rare and extreme. But also, pretty much it's all about standards and keeping to those standards. So even if that person doesn't meet those standards at the beginning, uh, that can change. So it's also about giving them a change. And hello there, Lisa Neil 5, or sorry to mispronounce your name. Um, so yeah, and kind of one last thing with these families, it's either if you kind of want to have that, or if you are part of already like a big family and want to kind of enhance things. So that's kind of for you. So as I said, we've covered the kind of the main structure and made selection last time, and now I will be kind of going more into the fun part. So very quickly about symbolism again, and then we get say, and these are, even if you don't plan to kind of follow this or do this as a guide, it is still something that you can even play, for example, with your children. I think it's pretty good. With this also disclosure, I am single, so this kind of came on to when I was thinking, okay, what kind of relationship and family do I want to have? Because I hope to find a partner in the next year or two and start a family soon after. So let's get to this. Most of the human psyche is about emotions. Well, we need to temper it and control it so it doesn't is not out of control. It can be used as a shortcut to say many things with just one symbol. The association we make with these symbols and rituals can create strong feelings. They also make things more magical and fun. So here are some examples that you can adapt. And I think it's important just don't even think in your personal life. A lot of the symbols that are used, for example, on internet, memes are a great shortcut to compress a lot of information, in a funny image or something like that. National flags, family insignia of the old ones, and uh, or even short sayings are very, kind of symbolism. And if, of course, if you're religious, uh, in more than just it's a cultural way and are looking more into religion, then you will find a lot of symbolism in many aspects of it. For example, the Christian cross is a big symbol, and can go on and on. So, but for your family, I think the first one is to have like a house insignia, which would which should include your not just family history, but also pretty much kind of the basic tenets of your family. And this, house insignia, or can then be incorporated into uh, other symbols that can be placed around. And let's see. Okay, I will have to expand this a little bit more. I notice here. And as I said, this could be, and you can find online. Oh man, what was it? It was been a few years back. I saw like a toolkit from somewhere, how to make your kind of house or like family insignia or symbol. And it's not just that, but you kind of have multiple steps through it. So you kind of decide your three core values, or you could say three core sayings. For example, think of in Game of Thrones at the beginning, where they are learning about the different houses and uh, what are, let's say, their mottos, and what are their family symbols. The House of Lannister always pays its debt, and you know also, winter is coming. All those things are uh, part of that. So you decide on those things. From that, you can decide on house colors, and then you go kind of on and on as as you kind of add to it. But it's very important to kind of have that, because so the ideal is that uh, your children, for example, would know what are your family values. And let's just say, uh, in case of, for example, for my family, of course I will have to have a long discussion then with my family, but or there would be, kind of taken elements from both of families, because what I plan to do in my specific circumstances is pretty much create, as the name of this suggests, the great house, a new house. So it would take elements from both, my future wife's house, or their family, and my family. In my case, historically, my family on this side has been, primarily doctors, or kind of has been kind of the main family profession. So that would definitely, I think, play a role, given how historically I'm interested, and where I'm basing a lot of my also inspiration from the first Czechoslovak Republic. That would play a role. So I could imagine, uh, you know, something akin to what we have on the Czech standard, Truth Prevails, which was also the Czechoslovakian presidential standard as well, might be incorporated into it. And let's actually take a quick exploration while we are at it. So here we have some random stuff. So it can be, something, uh, something like that. Work hard and be grateful. Be the good. See the good. Courage and be kind. So it's like, learn, enjoy, serve, respect. That would be, for example, if it more akin or closer to like a public sector family, or family that's more related to public sector, like the army, especially the serve part. Uh, Work hard, play hard, pray harder. That's like before, like priestly family, and lot of things, and it will also depend on, you know what you're doing. So those are things, that you should probably really submerge yourself to figure out what those should be, figure out the symbolism, the meaning, because as I read here, like another thing is to figure out the house colors. So that's that's like another thing. You can have like an anthem. I, for example, have like a, say, personal song, which I kind of think is going to change once I settle down with family, uh, and others. And with the others, from some of my uh, notes, or like, not like, I'm using like a lot. I'll try to work on that, guys. Sorry. One of the another example that we have is jewelry. That's especially, for girls. I think they will appreciate that a lot, because the jewelry, as I said, for girls, that's something that could be put, when they are in formal dresses and stuff like that. Another thing, for example, in my tradition, or in my family tradition, right now, we have the girls of the oldest or second oldest, depending on how old is the oldest generation. Uh, they share a ring, which has like a, family history and meaning to them. So each year, one of the girls in the top generation gets to keep that ring and use it, but primarily safekeep it. And then at the family meeting, which we had actually this Saturday, uh, they take out and give it to the next one in line to keep it. So, those are little things of tradition that really help. As I write here, for example, colors have many meanings, also depending on the context they are used in. You don't necessarily have to choose colors that represent your house, though if you create a flag, then you will do that. but you just might choose that certain rooms have to have a specific color. This then, at the very least, becomes an interesting quirk of your family, and eventually kind of becomes like a magic. And if you go and visit like museum of the medieval family houses, and uh, or not just like in Europe, but even like in Asia, everywhere. There are a lot of these things. A lot of the times, they were the norm back then that people had that. For example, at one point, porcelain was quite a great luxury in Europe. So, having different kinds of porcelain with your family crest on it, that was thing to do. And there are many many options to kind of put this symbolism. So you can have an anthem, you can have like a specific flower, maybe like a spirit animal or something like that. So these are like kind of things that inspire, that are supposed to inspire, that bring you, bring the family closer together. And then you have something to kind of make yourself in a way unique, at least eventually on. But it can be sense of pride, but also a responsibility. That's a big thing as well, because if you put it on, then you're representing your entire house, and that needs to be uh, really put into all the members, is that it's not about you, it's about the family. So if you are like in any especially representative positions, then bad behavior reflects poorly on the entire house. And that's what you need to really think about and figure out. So so quick break before we go to the next chapter and really start getting this in. um and again, it's not just about it also kind of creates a more, I would say, mythical or magical atmosphere. And I think, especially in our age, with a lot of the technology and everything, we've kind of lost that feeling. And I think a lot of people are really kind of searching for that. And this is a nice way how to really inspire. And for example, for me, sensing that I am part of something bigger than myself helps to drive me forward. And I think you will find that especially with guys, with a lot of guys, that's a very mm, inspirational and moving thing. And I think you will also find something similar with the girls, though. It's because it's becomes like, oh, now it becomes, I'm a princess of the family. And though in that case also you have to uh how should I say it, beat out the, well, not really beat out, but really disincentivize any bad behavior or unrealistic ideas. And I've recently kind of got a very, say, endorsed a little bit more in this, could say, anti-genre, uh, of where you have, it's before it goes into the classic, oh, I get reincarnated into another world, which by accident or for the story purposes is the romance novel I have been reading, or the romance game I have been playing. And now I am going to romance all the characters. Or even though I'm from modest upbringing. I'm going to romance and marry, the prince and become the queen and all that stuff. And the problem with these, let's say, romances and fairy tales, they don't really describe what what comes next, or it's not a simple thing to be a queen or serve in like in these official capabilities. There's a lot of responsibilities, lots of course intrigue, as it's common in royal courts. And it's that's for example one of the reasons why uh, you could say lower nobility doesn't get a chance to marry, into the royal family unless they're like very special circumstances. Uh, and part of that is that the future queen needs to be ready to handle what comes with the job, because it's in that case it's not just marrying for love, but uh, it's also a job, because then you're becoming you know ruler to the country. So a lot of things to need to know, and especially with the higher nobility, those girls which get ready for those potential positions, or positions where they have to, if it comes to it, lead the nation, or at least lead the estate, lead the house. So they are well versed in all the necessary traditions, all how to, for example, manage economics, of course, all the etiquette, and all that stuff. So they are ready, and that's not necessarily the case with the lower nobility. Not so, because they have also a different role in the state as compared to higher nobility. So that's another big part. So, and then as I mentioned, what I'm kind of engrossed is the anti-genre, where kind of, because usually the story usually with these stories goes that then there is the original fiance of the prince who becomes jealous, or for whatever reason is evil to the main heroine, and at the climax of the game she gets denounced, usually uh, then gets killed off. Surprisingly, the girls' stories are very brutal to their vanquished enemies. Um, that's kind of what I new thing that I learned. Uh, but that's for another topic entirely. But usually, then this anti-genre is that this either somebody like around this circle of this villainous also gets reincarnated there, or uh, kind of notices things are not as they should be, and then starts acting against it. And uh, because one of the things, of course, the reincarnated person who is in this has been reincarnated, thinks it's a game. So that person kind of goes around and plays it as it is game, even though especially in that story, of course, it's real life. It's not not something that you have ending credits once you fulfill your romance thing. There's things afterwards. So that's kind of why I also said why it's important to be very careful about uh, choosing your partner and all those things. And I've kind of lost track where I was originally heading with it, but that's, I think, just a interesting side note. So, how are you guys doing? Don't be shy. Feel free to say hi in the chat, and let me know, for example, if you are from a big family and want to kind of learn more into this, to see if this is for you, or if you want to maybe start something bigger and more interesting with your family. And let me take a sip of water, and let's go on to the next part. So uh, one more say addition to the thing I was saying before is that especially today there is a lot of tradition, how outdated, how stupid old people. Uh, Recently, kind of had the heard an interesting quote, and the gist is kind of the tradition and societal norms is the solution to problems that you didn't know you have until you dispense with them. So traditions, societal norms are protection from problems that are super annoying to fix, and you don't have them until you get rid of tradition and all those things. So that's also one more thing to look in Russian. So dispensing with tradition and old stuff is not always a good idea. Course, of course, you have to be more discerning than just this surface level, because for example in the Aztec empires of human sacrifice was the societal norm, uh, which I think we can all agree is probably not a good idea. And yeah, so rituals which are part of the tradition, symbolism, and I would say keeping the magic alive. The great house can sustain itself uh, on just family bonds to a limited degree, but addition of rituals and spaces will significantly enhance these bonds and allow for growth. While to some these things might seem meaningless, these have proven themselves across cultures and time, and lacking them diminishes culture and belonging. These are not just the main. These are not just for the main participants, but may be even more so for the watchers. So that goes back to what I was just saying. Uh, you know, Tradition, rituals are important, especially in this case, as I will get into, like different, rituals while growing up are important, and in many ways, uh, even though, for example, it's or things like celebrating birthday, uh, these are, or for example, graduation from university and all that stuff, uh, and they may not, as I say here, necessarily be important as much for the participants, or but even they might be even more important for the watchers or people like in the audience, because again it brings people together, uh, which then deepens up the bond. Another good thing, usually after all these tradition, you then go together for a meal or something like that, so there's more bonding going on afterwards. And uh, depending on what kind of ritual it is, it can be, for example, progression through life. That's many things that you can do with this to make it interesting. So the importance of rituals could be further demonstrated in how Christianity, during its spread, took on rituals of the religions it was displacing. So, for example, Easter, uh, Christmas to a certain degree as well. Even communism started taking over Christian rituals when it gained power. For example, newborn baptism was added into welcoming of new citizens. In all cases, these were added to fit the new religion ideology. So, as Christianity expanded, in order to make it easier to convert people, to get them into, uh, kind of into the fold, they adopted some of the traditions that the people had before. Easter is a prime example of adopting Slavic traditions to welcome spring. uh, and so on. From what I've heard, if you go to South America, a lot of the local, let's say, religions or gods merge in with Christianity, create and sometimes create some really strange things. So uh, that comes into it, and even communism subverts these for their own goals. And I think that's only more highlights how these are important. Uh, yeah, using the existing rituals of your religion and culture are a good starting point, and the only thing that you need to attach to it is a family meal or gathering afterwards. If missing, you can build these ritual or adapt them for your purposes. So that is the beauty of you starting these things, and even later on, if you establish your great house, should be open to include new traditions. So in this case, what I'm saying here, for example, if you have traditions, Japan is a nice example because they have different, growing up traditions that you do. So at certain ages, you go to the shrine, or you have some other growing up ceremonies. So what you gonna need to, and this is the easy part. The only thing that you need to add afterwards is, say, a family gathering or family meal and so on. Another nice recently, I've heard a nice one which specifically for Britain, I think, would be that when you become an adult, your father uh, takes you out and gets you a suit, so that you have a nice suit, entering your adulthood. So you can have something like that, and of course, then it's a nice tradition between you and your father. So again, family bonding. Uh, Maybe you can add a few uncles or like that if you want to add more people. But I think this is just the son and the father go in, get a professional suit, measured and done, and then of course you can have like a family gathering where that person is introduced. But that's, I think, what I'm discussing here later on as well. Let me know in the chat if you have like an interesting family traditions like this. So first thing that I mentioned here, which or mentioned before, we kind of my family already had this on Saturday, is first is a house meeting. In our context, it means the great house should have a central location for entire great house to be able to gather, or if no such place is the house position in the house position, to have a location for the great family events. I'll go more on spaces later. So uh, there should be some minimum number of events to gather all the families together to further bond, share news, celebrate occasions, and so on. National holidays are a good option. These events are even more important the greater the distance between the families, or where there are less options for casual meetings or chance encounters. So for example, the Golden Week in Japan, another great example, or Chinese New Year, when you have the biggest human migration happening on the planet, where everybody goes back to visit their uh, families. This is what I'm kind of meaning here. And in our case, I live right now in the house that's after my great grandfather, that my grand uncle lived in, but he didn't have any children. So it eventually came to my dad. And part of, you could say, unwritten agreement was that Nobody else from the family is going to kind of claim it or justice. Is that at least once a year we have a family gathering here in this house, because we are all the family that gathers is all from this great great grandfather that originally owned this house. So all of everybody gathers back in here. So having a nice location like that has like links to family history could be very good. And but yeah, more on spaces later. The required one should be at least once a year, an all house meeting. The main purpose of the gathering is to, at the very least, meet again with everyone, update any family information that needs updating, and make any important announcements. Meeting like these have to have a rule when they occur so that everyone in the family can plan for it. The more things get organized and the bigger the family and the longer history, the more events should be planned. So in our case, we have this, let's say, family gathering. It also has a name, and it's the first weekend of the new year, or in this case, it was the second because of my grandmother being sick. So just like a general rule, when it occurs, so that people can put it on their calendar, expect it, plan with it, and so on. And of course, the bigger the family and the longer the history, the more should things be kind of planned out and be more organized. But important part then is also kind of the free flow so that people can mingle and interact. All the house events should be held in a appropriate location. I explained the reason why we held it in our house and why that's appropriate location. The location should be an important location for the house or that reflects the prestige or aspiration of the house. A common location for this event is the ancestor home, so that's our place. So that's one place. If, for example, you are centered like around the company, then it could be, for example, in the company premises or something along those lines. Especially, for example, if you don't have like a ancestral home or something like that, then finding the appropriate venue is important. Over the course of time, as the house grows, there will be achievements and items that will gain significance over time. These items should be collected and treasured when family meets. Then they should be put on a display for everyone in the house to enjoy. So, keep a family archive, and at these meetings, show up the archive, bring it up. I think that's something that I have to put more forward in my family as well. So I already touched on it. Next one is rite of passage. Many cultures have rites of passage or events tied to age as children grow up. These give the children clear milestones on their way to adulthood. In Shintoism, there are multiple ages when a shrine visit happens to celebrate a child's rite of passage. This is on a specific date in the year. This includes dressing up in a celebratory kimono or yukata, taking pictures at the shrine, and other rituals. So, as I mentioned, that's, for example, a local ritual that you can adapt, add to it some family spin, and you have a nice tradition to look forward to. This is a opportunity to take great pictures, but more important is the option for family gathering combined with reflection on the child's growth, an opportunity to direct future growth through discussion and advice for the child. School entrances and graduation ceremonies are another rite of passage milestones. Again, another example. Rite of passage isn't just limited to growing up, but also beyond. This is something often forgotten, and many in the West today seem to be stuck in wanting to remain children forever, as later stages in life have been often denigrated. Boys and girls grow into gentlemen and maidens or ladies. From there on, the next stage for the maidens is to become a mother. As the children grow up, she enters a new stage, being a matriarch or the elder of the family, and then becoming grandmother. Men follow the same pattern, but specific to their gender. So um, so for guys, it will be from boys to gentlemen, then to fathers, grandfathers, and then matriarchs. Sorry, patriarchs in this case. Uh, yes, from gentlemen they become fathers, then patriarchs, and finally grandfathers. It also depends on how you structure your family. So you can become grandfather and then a patriarch, but usually, um, or it will be kind of at the same time. That depends on your family structure, how things are set up. Each of these stages of life is different, comes with different responsibilities, and should be celebrated. Everyone should be enjoying these different stages of life and be looking to the next one with anticipation instead of dread. So, when you're aging, if have family, children, you shouldn't be, dreading it. It should be something to look forward to, and I think you're kind of preparing in your current stage for the next one, so that you can be fully ready for that. And again, that can be also like another thing that when a gentleman becomes a father, then his father, they go and do something, or it's the family man, or something. There's a lot of options, and especially in this part, it's all about creativity and figuring things out. But let's kind of go from the beginning. So, coming of age. Out of the rite of passage, coming of age is probably the most important. To raising the child, they should be well aware at this point what adulthood means. This should be a great celebration, but also an option for the new adults to consult and reflect on the new freedoms and responsibilities that have been given onto them at that time. It is important that freedoms like ability to drink alcohol, smoke, independence from parents, and so on are understood, as are their downsides and dangers. As much as understanding of newfound freedoms is important, it is as much important that the new responsibilities are understood as well. Everything from voting, taxes, to consequences for action, especially related to the freedoms, are understood. So there's a pretty much a genre of videos on YouTube of getting uh, when people record people getting, or new adults or children getting their first check from the work, and looking and being surprised that it's only half of what they thought it's going to be because of taxes and all those things. The idea is here that when a time comes, uh, they should not be surprised at all. They should be well aware of those things. So, recommendation would be to split this ceremony into two. First, meeting with adults to discuss and meditate on freedoms and responsibilities, possibly even paired with talk with closer family group and members from main family to talk about sex relations and so on with members of the same sex, especially if that wasn't part of previous coming of age ceremony or ceremonies, or continue education as mentioned in last part. So following that, maybe another day would be a great family celebration, possibly on the birthday itself. That shouldn't be missing an important gift from the family patriarch and matriarch, preferably something with family insignia or order to symbolize that they are part of the family now, as of in this case more than ever. They are responsible for how their actions are going to reflect on themselves and the family. I think I will have to probably adjust this because even behavior of the children, and this is more like towards the parents, reflects on the house as well. especially the older they are. And with the coming of age ceremony, uh, that reaches the peak. So that's important highlight. And I would really like if, or I think it's important here to have like a really present from the family patriarch and matriarch with some, family symbolism included in there. So as I said in the example, for example, from UK that I heard that could be done, uh, it would be getting a suit, and the suit then having maybe on the buttons the family symbol or something like that. So another next, say, big event is marriage. Marriage is one of the most important events for the great house. Historically, it has been about the two families joining together and the prospects of future children. In modern times, it has changed into a complete celebration of the two individuals in many cases. This is also affected by local customs as well. In the Western tradition, it is the bride's family which organizes the wedding, but no matter the tradition, the great house should always offer assistance. The main family should, like with the coming of age ceremony, at least be involved when it comes to gifts. The involvement here will also be determined if the new family is continuing the lineage of one of the families of the great house, or if it's more sort of leaving. In case of continuing the lineage, then the parents of the married couple, together with the matriarch and patriarch from the main family, should present the marrying couple with symbolic gifts for that family branch and its continuation. Additional specific family rituals should be established and make this occasion more unique and more memorable. The idea to convey here is that married couple is entering into a special and ancient bond. So part of it is kind of going, you could say, against modern tradition, where it's just about the marrying, the two getting married, or specifically uh, primarily, about the bride, especially in my tradition, the bride's family takes care of or is taking care of all the marriage stuff, the celebrations, all that stuff. And this is, let's just quickly, rituals. And I'm missing here one ritual, but so that's important. The big thing is, obviously, there is the with the marriage and all that stuff, there's the promise of children. So in a way, that's kind of like the initial step in preparing, I would say, for another big life change for the couple, that it's no longer about them, uh, themselves, as them as individuals and all that stuff. It's kind of transitioning from being much more being focused on themselves, maybe some family business, but primarily themselves, into switching the focus to uh, raising up children. So that's a big one. And of course, the joining of two families, that's also important. And it's like another thing, if for whatever reason, uh, the couple decides not to be part of the great house and decides kind of to leave, then of course, then it's completely up to them how they are going to do it. Even though still, the patriarch matriarch should provide the gifts and all that stuff. though this time without the family insignia on it. But if they are staying uh, in the house, then uh, it should be kind of given that some of the traditions of the house when it comes to marriage should be respected and should be included. And I think it shouldn't be even raised as a question if these traditions that kind of are there for the house should be included. If it's raised a question, then that's not a good thing. So um, unless there's like some technical reason why it cannot be done, but that's a different thing. Just realize here, and that shows that I'm still quite young. I'm missing here are funerals. So that's a another big part of life, which is death. So there should be obviously rituals for funerals as well, and of course you have custom for your location, for your culture, and there then afterwards again the easiest one, family dinner or family meal with focus on celebrating and remembering the one that has passed. If we want to get more advanced, going back to again symbolism, for example, when the head of the Schwanzenberg family, who is a noble family, died, they had a lot of, although it was a state funeral because of the importance of that person, but one of the big things that they have, of course, were like was the family guard, and they even have uh, they even have like a funeral theme or like a song that gets played. So you know it's those things, and oftentimes people dismiss these little things, but especially in the moment, I think, or I would say the little things really count. It is the little things that kind of really compromise the great house, and then the sum of them is what really puts you, I would say, forward or on the map uh, with things, with life. So that's something to kind of put together. And as you see, all these things are interconnected. So that's think of all those things together. So what are some of your family tradition? Let me know in the chat. I see that I have people watching. Don't be shy. uh, I am streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and X. I don't think you can really comment on X, so feel free to head to one of these platforms, or let me see if I can open it and check out uh, my profile. Yes, so here's the, no, this is not, this is just me announcing it, and here's the actual stream. So feel free to comment or what is it called here? Reply. Yeah, reply in on X as well. I will won't catch it live, or maybe I will see. I think they've announced something on StreamYards that it's working. So feel free to do so, and I'll let us know what if you have any ideas or if you have some interesting tradition that you would like to share. I think there is a lot of interesting things, and the more we pull things or ideas together, the better then we can get from that. Mhm. So let me get prepared. So We're about halfway through the time for today. Let's see how far we can get. So, next is house spaces. Like with an institution, it needs tangible spaces to gather and perform its ritual. Missing also shouldn't be artifacts that reinforce its history and meaning. Great attention should be paid to create spaces that can accommodate the growing house and to include symbolism and architecture to wow the visitor and, if possible, create a sense of awe. This is the principle behind churches, temples, and other places of worship. It should also be made to last. That is the ideal scenario. At the very least, the main meeting location should be spacious and comfortable enough. It might take some time before such a space is established, though. Before that, or for specific occasions, other locations can be used. For example, coming up age ceremonies, the tradition can become that the party is at a specific establishment. Best if there is something unique about it that is important to that specific occasion or make it a memorable experience. So, as I was saying, have it, if needed, you can then, for example, in coming of age ceremonies, you go visit the shrine or the church or whatever you do, and then you, for example, go to a specific, restaurant that has, either has always been the tradition to go to or has some other significant meaning. So, and yeah, with the family houses and all that stuff, or spaces, kind of want to not necessarily like completely aim for just strictly functional, but you want something that makes sense. So, for example, I said, maybe if you have a craft company, then you meet in the workshop presentation area or something like that. That's you can showcase, what's going on, or in general, kind of move. You want to have like next level of spaces, something that say like wow, or if or have the different symbolism uh, on it. For example, in our living space, we have a chandelier that has statues on it that were done by a specific sculptor, and that has some historical significance as well, like very tiny, but still, those things count. Or, and as I said before, things that bring up the family history and all that, because part of that is, as you bring in the young generation, then you can introduce them, to the family, and you can showcase, oh, this is, what your great grandfather has done, or here is his, school diploma or something like that. By the way, I do have the school reports from my great grandfather in the basement, stashed away safely. So these things, then make it much more, interesting. And another thing that we did on Saturday was I put the family tree on our big TV in the living room, so that, then when people came and they wanted to explain their children how they related to anybody else around, then they could just come to the TV, and we could like look them up, and we can show them how we are related to, how they're related to that person, and so on. So really think about those things as well. House artifacts kind of goes, I think, pretty much what I've covered, but with achievements will eventually come artifacts or items that you can of importance. These can be medals from the state, pieces of art, or other historical objects. Many objects might become artifacts over time. No matter what it is, they should be preserved and protected. If the family location allows them, they should be put on display if possible, and for certain for family events. Again, always bring them up for family events. Other documents like diaries and photos should be preserved in the family archive as well and made accessible to family members. So that's like one thing, like again, uh, that's big thing that you need to consider or what's kind of plan for that with the great house you are planning on to. It's in a way it's an institution. So you also have things like the archives where you keep things for safekeeping with the artifacts. A lot of things you keep, as I said, for example, we have medals from the state for my great uncle uh, and my great great grandfather. So those things, of course, have meaning by themselves, but some other things might have meaning after more time passes and that person becomes say more established or does something of note. So you keep all those or you keep things that you think might have a significance. If you have like diaries, uh, family photos, they should be you know conserved in the archives. They should probably also be electronized as well, so that you can share them more easily. And these archives also should be available for any of the Great House members to visit and to add to. Uh, Sometimes what might be happening is, or what most likely will be happening, is that those significant pieces of history might be spread across different family branches in their homes and other places where they were. So at least the main family should keep track of where is what, and so that the family knows, so it doesn't get lost, and so that if needed, is they can also find it through the main family. All right, let's take a quick break. 1 hour talking, so please let me know. Want to, I want to know. Yes, no, that is not today. I'll be quick break in a moment, but before that, let me know in the chat. If you have any comments, thoughts, ideas for traditions that you maybe yourself do in your family, or if this is something that interests you or not, and why. Let me know. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break, and then we'll be back shortly. So probably less than 5 minutes. All right, I am back. And let's go back here to children's upbringing. It's quite a sizable section, as you can see. Let's see if we can manage it to get through this. Again, touched on many of these subjects in previous chapters, lightly because of all the interconnectedness. So I say with start with parents need to be heavily involved in their children's upbringing and education, but they also need to give them the freedom to explore and fail. Reprimand them when they overstep boundaries or stray too far from the proper path. So even the main thing, of course, is about the great house. It's all about getting into the future. The primary objective is the proper raising and protection of children, as it should be for any family. But it is not helicopter parenting or anything like that. As I say here, they need to have the freedom to explore, fail, and they need to be reprimanded when they overstep, the proper boundaries. Especially for guys, I would say it also applies for girls as well. Especially in teenage years, where they are pushing children in general. I, from my understanding of and looking into this is and listening to many fathers as well is compared to what some other people might be saying these days is that children are not smart or anything like that. The nonsense that attention seeking parents sometimes write, oh, my 30-year-old came with this smart question, and it parrots their ideology uh, completely. children uh, Children will base their behavior on the adults around them. They will try out the boundaries and see how far they can get. And for the most part, I do believe that children, especially as they come to this year, are looking for rules, and especially guys. But I would say again, applies to girls as well. They are looking for rules, and that's what the parents should provide. Rules, discipline. Uh, I think I'll touch more on that later. We have comment here from Henry. Hi, Henry. How are you doing? Once a year we celebrate Chinese New Year, but frankly speaking, I'm not quite like it. It seemed not genuine and so artificial. And because in this case, I would say because you kind of see it as a uh, obligation, and the magic is lost. So, and that could be many levels. Again, this is kind of like the armchair. What is it called? Armchair psychiatrist trying to figure out uh, what's the problem without seeing the patient ever or talking to the patient. Uh, uh, so, of course, if you kind of repeat things constantly, all that stuff, you have part of that is the tradition of uh, of your culture that plays a part in it, and of course repetition can make things boring. Uh, it helps, if you are looking forward to see the people. If not, then that's becomes even more of an annoyance to you, as is obviously. And sounds to me, as you said, there is like some sort, the magic of that moment, of that event, uh, is lost. And this is a potentially opportunity for you to maybe do something to make it magical again. And I'm using magical here very loosely, to make it more interesting. All that for me, for example, with the great, or with the family meetings, I'm looking forward, to see the people, because most of them I see only uh, a few, sometimes even once a year, or like a few times a year. So it's a great time to uh, catch up. I'm also kind of it's in a way a little bit annoying that I'm standing there and kind of with the computer and saying, okay, so do we have any family updates? Let's put them in, all that stuff. And so I very much enjoy it. Of course, there's great food. I'm still eating some of the remains of that to this day, and probably will be some sweets to eat for a few more days. So that always help. And so you need to really kind of figure out what is the core of the event, what is it supposed to do, and kind of then go and do that. For some events, you might have like a prescribed ceremony that needs to happen before you go eat or start mingling with people. So that's one thing. Again, uh, example of Japan, because I'm kind of engrossed in that culture quite a lot. Uh, there is in Tohoku, my recorded from the Meiji Revolution. There were the female samurais, but they have every year from local high school there, I could say two performances by the girls and the boys, and you have the old samurai family head who comes, and you have the elders, and like even previous generations from the school come in to teach the kids, like for example for the samurai, or for the guys, they have like a very difficult and specific song with the dance and everything they need to perform. So that's one thing that they teach the young generation. And then of course the girls, they have another dance with nagitana, which female samurai use there. So, and then it's the first thing is, of course, is the honoring the ancestor through these two dances at in the cemetery. And then they kind of everybody goes to a specific local establishment and to celebrate the anniversary of that event. uh, so again, first things, figure out what the event is about, or what it should be about, uh, and then kind of change it appropriately. um, and sometimes it can be just that, especially later if you establish, you have the arrival, say, of the patriarch or matriarch, or in general the oldest generation. So they kind of arrive together, and you have uh, maybe some short speech or something like that. Maybe then in our case, like the exchange of the rings. Adding some sort of, or maybe add a little bit of music specifically to those ceremonies. You know, and you will have to try and experiment what sits well with your family and with everybody involved to make it more interesting than, okay, just come, sit down, exchange, the gifts, and uh, you know add some magical aspect to it, something to add symbolism, because then that again, you're adding layers to make it more interesting. um let me Nope, this one, this view. So let's go back to children upbringing, which, again, full disclosure, I don't have children yet, so it's from what I've researched and read, and we shall see. Well, we shall see how much of maybe correct or of this could be actually applicable. As discussed earlier, sexual and mating education is of utmost importance when comparing it to school. Uh, One thing that the school can teach is about the family, its history, symbols, and values. Bearing the rare school project about the family, and show us your family tree or whatnot. These are things that the family needs to take on fully and consciously. Not instilling these values together with other ethics and other like religious values and practices will leave the children open for other people to pour their ideas into them, or in the best scenario, they are going to formulate their own. This family identity needs to be established strongly so that they won't get swayed by people who whisper sweet lies or other seductive whispers or destructive ideas. So this is primarily kind of like two things here. Should probably structure this paragraph better. We'll fix that at some later point. Um, is that actually three things? Teaching children about pretty much, the mating, as I crudely call it here. Uh, how to select, say, the proper wife or proper husband to bring into the family. That's very important. Depending on, in some schools today, especially in America, what they teach I would sum as degeneracy. So uh, this is really something that you need to teach at home, because it's one of those subjects that is very hard to talk to, especially about the sex and protection, all that stuff. um, I imagine everybody dreads it, but it needs to be done, because if you don't do it, then you're leaving the school, the state, the internet, especially, uh, and to teach them about it. And yikes, that can lead to very dark places. Of course, what school can never teach your children is about your family, because that's the only thing that the family can teach. So uh, that's a big one. I might say, consciously, the family needs to teach it. That's important, because and I think that's very often forgotten today, but because in the past, before the internet, before travel of long distances, these things were taught in a way by osmosis, by being constantly around to it. And that's one of my biggest issues, where I have trying to figure out, for example, how my grandparents met and how they got together, all that stuff. And they only tell me that they've met, and it's just somehow it happened because it was normal back then. That's a problem. That's not helpful, especially today. So kind of need to have this conscious education in these aspects. And if you look on successful families, especially the noble ones, this is one of the main aspects. There it's even more important given the the ramifications of selecting who to marry and all that stuff. uh, but I think in today's day and age it's important to kind of take the same approach and not to leave it for porn sites to educate your children about sex and romance and all those things. And as I say there, in the best case scenario, like probably happened with me, I form my own ideas, some good, some bad, and especially with the bad ones, I'm trying to dispense. But sometimes I'm not even sure if I know what those are. In most cases, I hope I do. And actually, one of the reasons or why I wrote this was me formulating my ideas. So I think this is my case is more of a good scenario. Most often, people don't really tend to think about these things. So that's like another thing that people just act on their hormones and pretty much just how things come to them naturally. Um, which might work in sometimes, but not in many. And primarily, it opens them to be groomed into destructive ideas. So I'll have to restructure this sentence. So that's kind of the big danger there. This all goes back to the mentioned anti-grooming training. Once children reach adulthood and are ready to leave their parental house, they should be individuals with a strong sense of where they come from and their identity. While it will develop further as they grow, it will be harder for people with bad intentions to sway them. So that's one of the big parts is and that's why, for example, it comes to me here, constantly, oh, deconstruction, this, deconstruct these ideas, old ideas, deconstruct that and other. And what you are doing here, or what you should be focused on with your children in this, is to really construct them so that they have a good sense of belonging, of who they are, or at least, who their family is, so that's always kind of a backup that they can fall on when other things fail. Upbringing in this area can start very early, determined by family symbols, and traditions. For example, with family, yeah, also, yeah, for example, with family symbols, for example, with family animals and colors. Those can be easily put into early education so that the child recognizes them as theirs. So, for example, when you go visiting zoo, the child learns about different animals, or when they are learning about different animals, to include the family animal with the line, look, that is our family animal. Or when they come to viewing, you can ask the child which one is the family animal, given that you have introduced it to them previously. So, for example, if you are a family of engineers, you can have a beaver as the family animal because of beavers and their constructions. Uh, so that's one of many things that you can do. Or like, what's our family color? Oh, it's blue, or something like that. Or it's blue, green, yellow. Uh, you can kind of put these kind of very early on. So each gender also will require a different approach, and parents will have to take on different roles. It is difficult balance to strike, as clear rules and boundaries are necessary to forming character, but too much is stifling. On the other hand, too much freedom is also unhealthy, and snowplow parenting is outright disastrous. The focus should be on building great adults from children. This doesn't mean that there shouldn't be things like playing with Lego or computer games, but there also should be a purpose to it. With Lego, it's about building creativity and imagination. With desktop or computer games, it can be relaxing, fun time with friends, but especially early on, a careful selection should be made to foster desired traits. For example, Legend of Zelda, that's mainly for you, Henry, to foster problem solving skills. Historical games like Age of Empires to foster interest in strategy and history are just a few examples. I think, in a way, Age of Empires 2 might be responsible for my interest in history, or like deeper interest in history, because that's, I think, one of the like first modern game after after DOS that I played. But even then, Settlers too. But then back then I hadn't had like any notions of that. So, and I haven't played Legend of Zelda myself, but this is actually from another person that I heard about, Legend of Zelda. Not you, Henry, somebody else on this specifically, of fostering problem solving skills, and as you solve different dungeons and all that stuff. Uh, and here I have a reference to fiction. So one inspiration can be fictional family from Star Wars of the pilot and Republic hero Wedge Antilles, who had the following approach to raising his daughters. Determined to instill values of hard work in his children, Antilles required them to work towards their own education. He paid 4 credits into their education account for each one they earned, but there were no handouts. When they were old enough to date, the protective Antilles insisted his daughters carry 2 blasters for protections. So that's like another thing. Okay, you want to go to university, you need to earn it. I'm going to, of course, support you, because as a child, you don't have that much opportunities to earn the necessary funds, but you need to really earn pretty much a fifth of those expenses for yourself. So for another starter, we can look at Rule 5 from 12 Rules for Life from Jordan B. Peterson. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. This all requires a critical but loving view of the child likes, talents, and what foundation is desired to have to start as a respectable adult. Dismiss the thought of having children tell you what they like and want. They are children. They have neither the necessary faculties nor experience to make such determination. There are people who tell you that you should do as they wish. For those are people who will also argue that children can give consent for life-changing surgeries or sex. This logically follows from that thought. Uh, this this changes as they grow, gain skill and experience, but it is duty of parent to provide guidance and direction towards becoming a respectable adult. So again, that kind of goes back to what I mentioned previously. Uh, you should be looking critically on what they are doing, where they're performing, because in my case, for example, my parents were, say, very allowing and very like listening to my whims, maybe partially because I wasn't as demanding or problematic. But at the same time, that meant that I've never really, actually, never learned to play any musical instrument, which even right now I feel is something I would really like to have done. Um, but back then, of course, because with which as a child I'm constantly switching my attention to other things, and so with things I didn't like, it was like, oh, it's just a phase. And with things that they like that I was doing, but I didn't like them, then they in many ways allowed me, to stop doing that. So, for example, one of them was going to Sokol, which is a even predates Czechoslovakia, goes back to Austria-Hungary. It's kind of like an exercise group, uh, patriotic exercise group, you could say. So it was, two times a week exercising. Then usually, like every other weekend was like some trip or some event. And after like a year or two, I stopped uh, going, which I think I'm looking at it right now as a very bad decision that it was allowed to happen, because then I didn't get the necessary, could say, exercise or the what's the word for it, the rigor to kind of keep on going. So that's, sometimes you just have to keep them doing things. Another person I know of, for example, I think since 3 or 2 year old, he has his son play piano every night, has to play and learn. And now he's like 7, 8, and is pretty good pianist, playing. And that is a skill that's, I would say always good, and it just opens a new view into life. And I would really have liked to have that as well, just given how much I really enjoy the classical or orchestral music in general. And the main thing here is, to give them directions. You want, the thing here is, and that's the most difficult part, is to figure out, okay, what is it that they actually like, what is not just a short fancy, what are their talents, and then guiding them to utilize these talents. So early on, similar like how good education is structured, you start very broadly and then you specialize. Sometimes you can specialize, if you have that freedom, child very early on, because you just sort of have a talent or are super into some specific things. In my case, it was computers or web development. Uh, and sometimes it just takes a longer time to figure out that one out. But once you have that, then you can move towards the direction. And with the great house, you kind of can already, based on what is the family focus, direct in that way. And the main goal, of course, is to prepare them for adulthood. I would say there are kind of like two halves of raising a child. One is, fun and games and kind of figuring out the basics, and it's kind of like, I would say, kind of the innocent stage. And then at a certain point, usually around the teenage years when puberty hits, that's when the preparation and moving to become an adult, a respectable adult, starts. That's where you really, say, start the education about family, sex, and start them focusing on a career or other aspects of education to make them into respectable adults. Based on the child's skill, they should be instilled in the family values, history, and identity, so that they are not lacking in their values and beliefs, lest others take hold of their empty place for nefarious reasons. Taking care of oneself through good eating habits, exercise, and restraint for alcohol and other vices. Being knowledgeable of history, aware of politics, philosophy, psychology, and culture, so as to be able to hold conversation and be aware of society. Having a culture outlet, writing, singing, playing musical instruments, as I said, or other, It's also a worthy skill. These are the basics. Some can be practiced from early childhood, some will come into play during teenage years, as I said. So, without being respectable adults, they should have not just their focuses that they have, in art, sports, but also have a general idea about society. For example, taxes, behavior of politics, different philosophy, especially how it relates to family philosophy, psychology of people, primarily to be able to protect themselves, and culture. So they are, in a way, like polymaths, light. So they have a little bit of everything to be able to survive in the society. That's one thing that I constantly harp on with our local educational system, that once you get out of it, you are actually not ready to work in society. They just teach you a lot of stuff to remember, but for example, they don't teach you basics like how do you fill up tax returns, or uh, any of those things. So it's that's kind of where you need to step in. So during all this time, it is important that the parents themselves keep on improving themselves and lead by example. Doing activities together is also a great bonding opportunity. And during this time of life, great strides can be made towards building a legacy. It is important to involve children as well, so that they can see parents at building something and have their own connection to it. Also, so that they know other people involved and can make connections with them as well. It's important to introduce children to parents' connections, so that they can make connection to those people as well, or at least their children, or else that connection not going to be propagated to the next generation. This also applies to the wider family. This is one thing I find important, because you yourself need to be continuously improving as well. You cannot demand respect and kind of be the authority if you are drunk, or constantly, or stuff like that. So being part of a great house means that you as a parent keep on improving. You build up a legacy, so building, say, the family business, and in this you also involve the children. It can be something simple. For example, my dad used to bring me up, because my school was on the way to his work, or it's like even further than his workplace. So he brought me to the workplace, and we had breakfast together at the office before anybody else came in. So little thing like this, and then making sure that you introduce your children to your friends or people involved in the business, and or whatever you're doing, so I can make either connection with the adults directly, or with their children, so that once you are gone, that connection is not lost. uh, which I think is quite important, because if, for example, you are in the construction business, which is a family business, and something happens to you, and you're in a hospital, and you need your, for example, your son to take over. If you haven't introduced him to people working in the business, they are going to have a lot of problems. They're going to get lost, and it's going to be painful. So uh, it is important, if to do that, and to keep doing that in that way. This really also is important with proximity to your people, but it's a different thing to cover. uh, so this is all about maintaining connection, because if you don't introduce those connections, and introducing that person wants and expecting that then suddenly the child is going to remember the connection, or the other person is going to remember. They're probably going to remember the child, but the child, your child, to remember the connection and or make a connection with that person, because that's like another thing. It's different just to know the person, but also to be in touch, make a connection, meet often. That's important, because if they, for example, something happens to you in the hospital and they didn't know how to reach that person, um, because they have only like met them a few times, then that's not good enough. So, and I think this especially is something that's missing a lot, unless the children are especially are involved like in the business. And it goes, it's super important for like if your families are in a business, or the business is kind of important company, but it goes beyond that as well. So people, connected to your family through other means. Finally, the duty of a parent doesn't end when a child turns into an adult. There will be a short respite once the now adult descendant enters the world of adults, but soon the time will come for parents to enter a new role, the role of grandparents, to guide their children on how to be great parents and assist with raising the next generation. So, once the child becomes an adult, goes to university, or leaves the house, whatnot, you will have probably a few years of not having to worry about much. But then comes a new role for you. That's when they start their own families, and it will come up to you to uh, guide them, assist them, to be also great adults as well. And this is super important, because that will help so much. The assistants, I will have to really look up, because I recently saw an interesting say chart or description that the more people you have involved in helping to raise the children with the family, uh, that are family, then the easier it becomes, because then the parent, if they can put children to grandparents for a few days, so that they can relax, or they can go you know with the the married couple then can go and enjoy some alone time for a little bit. That helps a lot. Plus, it also helps make the connection with the older generation, pass in more of the knowledge, all that stuff. But at the same time, the parents should not kind of leave the education to the grandparents, because then the connection between the parents and the child is going to be also severely hampered. So let's take a look at where we are. We are at the chapter Children Upbringing, so that's chapter 10. And these were pretty heavy chapters. So next one, Identity in the Great House. Okay, let's finish with this one for today. We'll have part 3 next month. This is more on going back to the individual level. People who place individualism and self-expression above everything will most likely complain that this is indoctrination, and that there can be no personal identity in the great house. Dramatic pause. If anything, this speaks volumes of the complainer. How little is there to their identity if they think that the little that is described is enough to engulf a person? If anything, the idea here is to create a stable and strong foundation for individuals, so that they can build even greater things on top. So as I said, we provide with the family a foundation and backup, and from that person thing, has an amazing, I think, start to do great things. To the argument that all these values are limiting to finding one creative self, from my experience, people are most creative when they have a healthy amount of restrictions that they need to work around. When looking at great houses through history, we often talk about their patriarchs, matriarchs, and other influential people. They were often very different personalities and very strong ones as well. They were connected through lineage and family values, but that did not result in them acting the same. There is not a lot more that goes into one's identity, but with the foundation of great house, one should not suffer from identity crisis or belonging because you have that basic already established. The family and its history should be a strong part of one identity, and if one's desires align with the family mission and resources, a strong start towards greatness. I don't think I have much or anything to add here, really. It's let me quickly jump here. So really is the great house, the values and identity that it provides. As we talk back in the symbolism, they are, just by the nature of them being for the entire house, for being very basic. Um, and let's check even here. Things like, fly together. Just check these, some of them yourself. And I would encourage you to look, for example, on the models of families from your local area or historically from your country, what they had. It's a great study and it's interesting. So, a lot of times it's just about teamwork, cooperation, uh, and personal growth and development, all those things, and this will depend on what you choose. Usually, I would kind of advise against fun and laughter themed family mottos or like make it a joke because it's kind of missing the point. Uh, but laughing together, I think it's makes sense. But I think let me quickly check. I think if you like to look more, so you you have the house sigils or house symbol, and it has a meaning. So a direwolf used this as the symbol of the house Stark sigil, which is probably, yeah, it's an animal that is a little bit northern house, and this was established back in the first blah 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 which is said by Ned Stark as well as children through the series is Winter is Coming. Uh, or here we have, the House Lannister is Hear Me Roar. Another thing that they have associated with them is, Lannisters always pay their debts. We have Targaryens, Fire and Blood. It's like these are like very more short than what I would probably recognize. Ours is the Fury. Can be fun, and it can a lot of symbolism in that. Greyjoys rises again harder and stronger. So that's another big part in there. Here we stand, growing strong, unbowen, unbent, unbroken. So again, think on these and what they mean. What do you want God to be there? And I will probably try for to add into the resources once I find it again, because they are sites a few years back about like building your family sigil and all that stuff. And I saw a nice website about it a few years back. I might actually have it somewhere in my notes. I will have to really check it out. And it had a guide how to do it properly. Of course, it's with these English guides, they are geared towards Europe primarily, just because that's historically how it is. Um, so, yeah, then you have to look up for your specific area. In Japan, I know there's a lot of different flowers, and usually it's rounded symbol. In Europe, of course, it's on a shield. Then having like a family flag is also nice. That's something that I definitely want to make one day, and I already have the shop that I want to assign this task to do, and they will probably also help us with the called heraldry in English. Let's see if I can type it. Yes. So heraldry is the discipline. It's the Britannic Encyclopedia. So here we have some English heraldry, so you can then. That's how you can see, the colors here, what it means, and what you can put on it. So you can find these guides and do this. If you want to get more serious, I would recommend contacting like a local heraldrist for you in your country to make sure that once you kind of have bringing together the different ideas from your family, that you can then come together and that bring it to the professional who can make something out of it. Some countries like England, they have also very strict rules and who can and cannot use what. So that's like another thing to be aware of as well. In countries like mine, where nobility is abolished, there are no rules on that. So it's pretty much up to you or up to me to build things as I want it for different ways. So this is the European way. If I do heraldry pen, it will be. You always see they have the months. So this is for Totoyomi clan, and you see the Imperial Seal, Tokugawa Shogunate, and more. You can find them across Japan, and even companies have stuff like Mitsubishi here logo. So that's one way how to take it. You're designing. In a lot of ways, there isn't that much differences between companies and families, because say in a way, because originally companies came out of family businesses or family structure. So you will see a lot of similarities like logos, going back to family symbols. So sometimes looking at the successful companies, especially if they have long history coming from a family business, you might find some interesting ideas there as well. And with that, we are a little bit over 2 hours now. We stop with anything in Great House. We'll have enough for part 3. But at this point, I do believe things will be much shorter. So I think next time we can, fingers crossed, finish the rest of it. I will go again over these texts that we discuss here, make some fixes, some addition from what we've talked. And with that, that's it for me for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Henry, again, for the input and questions or remarks. And yeah, feel free, especially if you're watching this afterwards, please comment down. What are your interesting family traditions, and comment on anything else that I've asked, or what do you think. And yeah, I will do part 3, maybe part 4. I will review things as I read it, and as I said here, rewrite it, and then maybe next year, 2025, we'll do this again with a review and updated version. So with that, thank you very much for joining me today on this non-traditional stream. Next week, we are to my usual programming, and the week after that, I will be back non-traditional, introducing my literary universe. Not the website, my actual writing. So with that, thank you very much for watching today, and I will catch you next time.